Hey guys, tonight we begin not with ancient Rome or forgotten royalty, but with something far more modern and just as ruthless. Friendship tested in the neon glow of Las Vegas. Because believe it or not, risking everything for someone you love in a city built on calculated odds and cold mathematics is somehow even more terrifying than any medieval dungeon. From high-stakes poker tables to contracts written in flesh and blood, this story is less about luck and more about what we're willing to sacrifice when the people we care about need us most. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together to a city where fortunes are made and lost on a single choice, and where sometimes the most dangerous bet isn't about money at all. The year is 2007. And Las Vegas burns like a neon fever dream against the Mojave Desert sky. The Strip stretches for miles, a river of light and ambition, where fortunes are made before breakfast and lost before midnight. This is a city built on dreams and desperation, where the roulette wheel spins eternal, and every handshake conceals a gamble. Antonio Benedetti stands on the 63rd floor of the Bellagio, hands clasped behind his back, watching the fountains dance far below. He is 42 years old, wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people earn in 6 months. His casino empire stretches across 3 properties on the Strip: the Venetian Star, the Golden Mirage, and the Diamond Palace. Each one is a monument to excess, filled with crystal chandeliers, imported marble, and the constant symphony of slot machines singing their siren songs. But tonight, Antonio's dark eyes are troubled. His reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows shows a man carrying invisible weight. He has everything: money, power, respect in an industry built on neither. Yet something gnaws at him. Perhaps it is the loneliness that comes with standing at the top. Perhaps it is the knowledge that in Las Vegas, even kings are just one bad bet away from ruin. His phone vibrates. A text message from Bassanio Russo. Meet me at Crofsteak. Important. Need to talk. Antonio allows himself a slight smile. Bassanio, his closest friend, his brother in all but blood. They grew up together in the desert outskirts of Henderson, 2 Italian-American kids who dreamed bigger than their circumstances. While Antonio built his empire through careful calculation and ruthless business acumen, Bassanio chose the riskier path: professional poker, high-stakes tables, the intoxicating rush of reading faces and playing odds. 20 minutes later, Antonio walks into Crofsteak at the MGM Grand. The restaurant is all dark wood and leather, the kind of place where a ribeye costs $200 and nobody blinks. Bassanio sits in a corner booth, his sandy hair perfectly styled, wearing a fitted designer shirt with the top 2 buttons undone. He has the look of a man who's always one card away from either triumph or disaster: handsome, charming, and perpetually on the edge. Tony, Bassanio stands, embracing his friend with genuine warmth. They sit, and a waiter immediately appears with a bottle of Barolo that Antonio didn't order, but somehow materialized anyway. This is how the world works when you own half the Strip. You look worried. Baz, Antonio observes, studying his friend's face with the same intensity he uses to evaluate business deals. What's wrong? Bassanio swirls his wine, staring into the dark red liquid as if it might reveal answers. "I'm in trouble, Tony. Real trouble this time." Antonio has heard these words before. Bassanio's relationship with money is like a passionate but toxic romance, intense, dramatic, and ultimately unsustainable. Over the years, Antonio has bailed him out more times than he can count. Paid off gambling debts, covered bad investments, smoothed over situations with angry casino bosses. But he does it without resentment, because friendship, real friendship, is the only thing in Las Vegas that isn't for sale. "How much?" Antonio asks simply. "It's not debt this time." Bassanio leans forward, his voice dropping. "It's opportunity. The World Series of Poker main event is in 3 months. I need bankroll. 50,000 for the buy-in, another 150 for expenses, side games, building my stake. 200,000? Antonio raises an eyebrow. "I know it sounds crazy, but Tony, this is my year. I can feel it. I've been playing the best poker of my life. Last month I final tabled 2 major tournaments. The cards are falling my way, the reads are coming easy. 200,000 gets me in the game. First place is $8 million. Antonio listens patiently. He knows the statistics. He knows that thousands of players will enter that tournament, that the odds of winning are astronomical, that even the most skilled poker player needs tremendous luck to navigate a field that large. But he also knows that some people are born for certain moments, that destiny isn't just a romantic notion, but a force that occasionally reveals itself. And there's something else," Bassanio continues, his voice changing, softening. "There's a woman." Now Antonio truly smiles. "Ah, now we get to the truth. Her name is Portia DeMarco. She's Tony. She's unlike anyone I've ever met. Brilliant, beautiful, and she's about to inherit the Palazzo Royale." The Palazzo Royale? Even Antonio, who owns 3 casinos, feels a flicker of awe at that name. It is the crown jewel of the Strip, a massive resort complex that combines old-school Vegas glamour with modern luxury. 4,500 rooms, multiple Michelin-starred restaurants, a private high-roller area where minimum bets start at $10,000. Portia's father, Vincent DeMarco, built it from nothing, and when he died 6 months ago, he left behind not just a billion-dollar empire, but a mystery. "I've met her 3 times now," Bassanio says, and there's something almost vulnerable in his expression. "At charity poker tournaments, industry events, we talk for hours. She's not like the other casino heiresses, Tony. She actually cares about the business. She knows every detail of operations, treats her dealers with respect, has ideas about making the industry more ethical." "So what's the problem?" Antonio asks, though he suspects he already knows. "Her father's will. It's complicated." Bassanio pulls out his phone, scrolling to a photo. He shows it to Antonio. The image captures a woman in her late 20s, standing on a rooftop terrace with the Las Vegas skyline behind her. Portia DeMarco has long dark hair that catches the golden hour light, intelligent green eyes, and a smile that suggests she knows secrets the rest of the world hasn't discovered yet. She wears a simple black cocktail dress, no ostentatious jewelry despite her wealth. There's a confidence in her posture that comes not from arrogance, but from competence. "Beautiful," Antonio acknowledges. "But you still haven't told me about the will." Bassanio pockets his phone and takes a long drink of wine. "Vincent DeMarco was brilliant, but eccentric. Before he died, he created what he called the ultimate gamble for Portia's hand in marriage. Any suitor who wants to marry her has to play a game. 3 safes, each one in a different private room at the Palazzo Royale. One is platinum, one is gold, one is lead. Inside one of them is a contract that grants permission to marry Portia. Inside the other 2 are messages that disqualify the suitor permanently. Antonio leans back, intrigued despite himself. Vincent always did have a flair for theater. What's the catch? Each suitor only gets one choice. Choose the wrong safe, and you're banned from ever trying again. You also have to agree that if you fail, you'll never propose marriage to any woman for the rest of your life. It's all legally binding. Teams of lawyers drew up the contracts. That's insane. That's Vegas, Bassanio counters. Vincent wanted to make sure whoever married his daughter understood risk, understood reading situations with incomplete information. He wanted someone who could see past surface value, who wouldn't just grab for the shiniest option. Basically, he wanted a gambler with wisdom. Antonio processes this information. How many have tried? 12 so far, all failed. There's Prince Walid from Saudi Arabia. He chose the platinum safe. Inside was a message that said, "All that glitters with cold brilliance reflects only your own vanity." Then there was Marcus Chun, the cryptocurrency billionaire. He chose gold. The message read, "You desired common metal over uncommon truth." They're all gone now, bound by the contract, prohibited from courting her. And you think you can choose correctly? I don't know, Bassanio admits, and his honesty is refreshing in a city built on bluffs. But I have to try Tony. She's the one. I know it sounds dramatic, but when I'm with her, everything makes sense. The chaos of my life, the constant risk-taking, the inability to settle down, it all feels like it was leading to this moment. Antonio watches his friend with a mixture of affection and concern. Bassanio has always been a romantic, always believed that the next hand, the next woman, the next opportunity would be the one that changed everything. Usually he's wrong, but occasionally, very occasionally, the universe aligns and dreamers become prophets of their own destiny. You need 200,000, Antonio says slowly. Not to gamble, but to prove yourself worthy. To show Portia you're serious, that you're not just another strip rat looking for an easy score. Exactly. I need to show up as an equal. Right now, I'm living in a studio apartment in Summerlin. I drive a leased BMW that's 2 payments from repossession. If I walk into the Palazzo Royale looking like that, I'm just another broke poker player chasing a billionaire. But if I show up as a World Series of Poker champion, or even a final table finisher, if I prove I can compete at the highest level, read the most complex situations, make decisions under ultimate pressure, then maybe I'm the kind of man Vincent DeMarco envisioned for his daughter. Antonio signals the waiter, orders another bottle of wine. His mind is already calculating, running through his liquid assets, his available credit lines. The problem is timing. His money is tied up in renovations at the Diamond Palace, in a pending land deal for a new property in Macau, and a dozen other investments that won't mature for months. His casinos generate enormous cash flow, but that flow is already allocated, already committed to operational costs, payroll for 3,000 employees, vendor contracts, licensing fees. I can get you the money, Antonio says finally, but I need 2 weeks, maybe 3. I have to liquidate some positions, call in some favors. Relief floods Bassanio's face. Tony, I don't know how to thank you. I'll pay you back every penny. When I win the tournament, if you lose every dollar at the poker table, I won't ask you to repay a cent, Antonio interrupts. You know that. What's mine is yours. We're brothers, Baz. We always have been. They drink to that. The bond between them stronger than any contract a lawyer could draft. Outside the restaurant windows, the strip pulses with light and energy. Somewhere in the distance, slot machines ring out their jackpot songs. Someone is winning. Someone is always winning in Las Vegas, even as countless others lose. As they're leaving Kraft Steak, walking through the MGM Grand Casino floor, a vast landscape of gaming tables and slot machines, where the air is thick with cigarette smoke and desperate hope, they nearly collide with a man emerging from the high-limit room. Solomon Zachariah. The temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Solomon is 60 years old, lean and sharp-featured, with silver hair combed straight back and eyes that miss nothing. He wears a dark suit and a white shirt with no tie, gold cufflinks catching the casino lights. He owns the Desert Sands Casino, a mid-sized property downtown in Old Vegas, far from the mega-resorts of the Strip. But his real business is lending money. High-interest loans to gamblers who've exhausted their credit, to business owners who can't get conventional financing, to anyone desperate enough to accept his terms. In an industry full of sharks, Solomon Zachariah is a great white. Antonio Benedetti, Solomon says, his voice carrying a faint accent. His family came from Israel 3 generations ago, but the old world still echoes in his pronunciation. Walking among the commoners. How democratic. Solomon, Antonio nods coolly. There is history between them, none of it good. For years the established casino families, Italian, Irish, Jewish families who built Vegas, have dominated the industry. But there has always been an invisible hierarchy. The big strip properties belong to certain families. Solomon's people have been kept at arm's length, given the less desirable downtown locations, excluded from the most lucrative deals. Antonio has never been overtly hostile, but neither has he done anything to challenge the system. His silence has been complicity. I see you're still funding your friend's hobbies, Solomon observes, looking at Bassanio with thinly veiled contempt. How much has he lost of your money over the years? $500,000? More? My finances are my business, Antonio replies, his voice hardening. Of course. Though I hear your finances are stretched thin these days, the Macau deal. The Diamond Palace renovations running over budget. The new Gaming Commission regulations requiring upgraded security systems across all your properties. Solomon smiles, showing too many teeth. Word gets around in our industry. Antonio says nothing, but Bassanio can see the tension in his friend's jaw. If you ever need capital, Antonio, you know where to find me. I offer loans at competitive rates. 20% interest, compounded monthly. Very reasonable for short-term liquidity issues. I'll never borrow from you, Solomon. Never is a long time in Las Vegas. This city has a way of humbling proud men. Solomon adjusts his cufflinks, preparing to leave. Enjoy your evening, gentlemen. May the cards fall in your favor. He disappears into the crowd, leaving behind a wake of unease. I hate that guy, Bassanio mutters. He's a predator, Antonio agrees. He makes money from people's desperation. He's everything wrong with this industry. They exit onto Las Vegas Boulevard. The night air is warm, carrying the scent of jasmine from the Bellagio Gardens, mixed with cigarette smoke and exhaust fumes. The sidewalks are packed with tourists, Midwestern families gawking at the spectacle. Bachelor parties already drunk at 9 p.m. Elderly couples feeding dollar bills into video poker machines at the casino bars. Antonio's driver pulls up in a black Mercedes S-Class. As they slide into the leather interior, Bassanio asks, "Are you really okay for money, Tony?" "I don't want to create problems." "I'm fine," Antonio assures him, though his mind is churning. 2 weeks. "I'll have your 200,000. But as the Mercedes glides down the strip, passing the erupting volcano at the Mirage, the Eiffel Tower replica at Paris, Las Vegas, the medieval towers of Excalibur, Antonio wonders if he's being honest with himself. His empire is strong but illiquid. His assets are vast but immovable. And in a city where cash is king, being asset-rich and cash-poor is a dangerous position. The car drops Bassanio at his apartment complex in Summerlin, a modest building that seems shabby compared to the luxury they just left. Antonio watches his friend walk inside, shoulders squared with renewed hope, and feels the weight of responsibility settle onto him. He is promised $200,000 he doesn't currently have. He has 2 weeks to find it. And in Las Vegas, 2 weeks can feel like both an eternity and the blink of an eye. The next morning, Antonio sits in his private office at the Venetian Star, a space decorated with understated elegance mahogany desk, leather chairs, original artwork on the walls depicting old Las Vegas, back when the Rat Pack ruled and everything seemed simpler. His financial advisor, Marcus Chun, sits across from him with a laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. Marcus is 35, brilliant with numbers, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and an expression of perpetual concern. He clicks through various accounts, and each click seems to tighten an invisible noose. The Macau deal requires the full $20 million to close next month, Marcus explains, highlighting columns of figures. If we pull out now, we lose the $5 million deposit. The Diamond Palace renovation is at a critical phase. We're mid-construction on the new poker room. Stopping now would cost more than finishing. Your line of credit with Wells Fargo is maxed. Bank of America won't extend more until the quarterly earnings report shows positive growth, which won't be for 6 weeks. What about the Golden Mirage? Antonio asks. We had a strong quarter there. Strong, but the profits are already allocated to the new lighting system for the facade. The Gaming Commission mandated upgrades to our surveillance technology across all properties. That's another $3 million due in 30 days. Antonio stands, walking to the window. Below, even in late morning, tourists stream through his casino. The Venetian Star is themed around Italian Renaissance luxury frescoed ceilings, marble columns, gondolas floating through indoor canals with singing gondoliers. It grosses $40 million annually, yet somehow he can't access $200,000 in ready cash. What if I sell some personal assets? Antonio suggests. The condo in Henderson, the collection of vintage casino chips. Marcus shakes his head. The condo market is soft right now. You'd have to discount heavily for a quick sale. The chip collection might bring in $50,000 from the right collector, but finding that collector takes time. You need the money in 2 weeks. There's a long silence. Antonio knows what Marcus is thinking, but won't say no. Antonio says firmly, I didn't suggest anything. You're thinking I should go to Solomon Zachariah. The answer is no. Marcus closes his laptop carefully. Antonio, I've been your advisor for 8 years. In that time, you've made brilliant decisions. The acquisition of the Diamond Palace was visionary. Expanding into Macau positions you for Asian market growth. But this lending $200,000, you don't have to fund your friend's poker tournament. This isn't business. This is emotion. Bassanio is my brother. Bassanio is a professional gambler with inconsistent income and a history of poor financial decisions. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying he's a bad investment. Antonio turns from the window, his voice cold. Calculate what I'm worth, Marcus. Every asset, every property, every equity position. What's the total? Marcus hesitates, then opens his laptop again. His fingers fly across the keyboard. Approximately $380 million. And you're telling me I can't find 200,000 of that to help my oldest friend pursue something that might change his life? I'm telling you that $380 million on paper doesn't equal liquidity. I'm telling you that in this industry, cash flow is everything. Your father understood that. He built this empire by never overextending, never making emotional decisions. The mention of Antonio's father stings. Carlo Benedetti died 5 years ago, leaving Antonio an empire, but also impossible expectations. Carlo was legendary, ruthless in business, charitable in public, beloved by employees. Antonio has spent every day since trying to live up to that legacy, and every day feeling like he falls short. Call Solomon Zachariah, Antonio says quietly. Set up a meeting. Marcus looks stricken. Antonio, do it today. That evening, Antonio sits in a booth at the Peppermill, a 24-hour restaurant on the Strip that's pure old Vegas kitsch pink neon, mirrored walls, tropical plants, and a fire pit in the center that's been burning since 1972. It's the kind of place where deals have been made and secrets kept for decades, where the darkness of the booths provides privacy and the constant flow of tourists provides anonymity. Solomon Zachariah slides into the booth across from him, ordering coffee from a waitress who's been working here longer than Antonio has been alive. Solomon looks amused, like a chess player who's anticipated his opponent's every move. This is unexpected, Solomon says, though his tone suggests it's anything but. Antonio Benedetti, reaching out to me. What can I do for you? Antonio gets straight to the point. I need $200,000. Short-term loan, 30 days maximum. 30 days? Solomon's eyebrows rise. And what collateral do you offer? My reputation. My word. In 30 days, my quarterly distributions come through. I'll have the liquidity. Solomon laughs, a dry sound like papers rustling. Antonio, I don't loan money on reputation. I'm not a charity. I'm a businessman. I'm offering to pay interest. 10%. 20%. That's my standard rate. Antonio's jaw tightens, but he nods. Fine, 20%. $40,000 in interest for a 30-day loan. Solomon stirs sugar into his coffee, the spoon clinking against a ceramic mug. There's one problem with your offer. I don't believe you can pay me back in 30 days. I think your financial situation is more precarious than you admit. The Macau deal, the renovations, the regulatory requirements, you're stretched thin. What happens if your quarterly distributions are lower than expected? What if there's an unexpected expense? What if one of your casinos has a bad month? That won't happen. But what if it does? Solomon leans forward, his voice dropping. Here's what I'll do, Antonio. I'll loan you $200,000. Zero interest. Antonio blinks, shocked. Zero interest? Zero. Not a penny. But you'll sign a contract with specific terms. If you pay me back within 30 days, we're even. No interest, no penalties. But if you default, if you miss that 30-day deadline by even a single day, then I get collateral. What collateral? Solomon's smile is reptilian. 1 pound of your flesh, cut from wherever I choose. The words hang in the air between them. Around them, the pepper mill continues its eternal Operation Tourists, ordering scorpion bowls, couples sharing midnight breakfast, dealers and cocktail waitresses grabbing meals between shifts. Normal life, mundane conversations. But in this booth, something ancient and terrible has been proposed. You're insane, Antonio says. Am I? Think about it, Antonio. You're certain you can pay me back in 30 days. Absolutely certain. So the collateral clause is meaningless, just legal language that will never be enforced. You get your $200,000 with 0 interest, essentially a free loan. I get the satisfaction of a contract. We both win. Why would you want such a clause? Solomon's expression hardens. Because for 20 years, men like you have looked down on men like me. You and your strip elite, your Italian families who act like you built Vegas with your bare hands. You exclude us from your deals, from your clubs, from your real power circles. You smile at charity events and treat us like we're barely legitimate. I'm tired of it, Antonio. This contract makes us equals. You come to me, you accept my terms, you acknowledge that you need me. Antonio should walk away. Every instinct screams at him to leave this booth, this restaurant, to find another solution. But he thinks of Bassanio's face, the hope in his friend's voice when he talked about Portia. He thinks of all the times Bassanio stood by him in high school when Antonio's father was under federal investigation, in college when Antonio struggled with depression, at Carlo's funeral, when Antonio could barely function. Brotherhood isn't a balance sheet. Love isn't a calculation. I want my lawyer to review the contract, Antonio says. Of course, I'll have it drafted by tomorrow. But Antonio understands this. The contract will be ironclad. No loopholes, no technicalities. If you miss that deadline, I will collect. This isn't a metaphor. I will literally take 1 pound of flesh from your body. I have doctors on retainer who can perform the procedure. It will be legal, binding, and brutal. I'll pay you back in 30 days, Antonio says, his voice steady despite the ice spreading through his veins. You'll never touch me. Then we have a deal. They shake hands, and Antonio feels like he's made a bargain with something far darker than a simple lender. As he walks out into the neon-soaked night, the strip stretches before him in all its gaudy glory. The stratosphere tower pierces the sky like a needle. The lights of 1,000 casinos blur together into a river of false promises. He texts Bassanio, money secured, come by tomorrow. Let's talk poker strategy. The response comes immediately. Tony, you're the best friend anyone could ask for. I won't let you down. Antonio pockets his phone and walks toward his car, past tourists taking photos, past street performers dressed as showgirls and superheroes, past the endless parade of human hope and folly. Somewhere high above, in a penthouse suite at the Palazzo Royale, Portia DeMarco sits with her father's mysterious safes, waiting for someone wise enough, lucky enough, or destined enough to choose correctly. And somewhere in the dark heart of downtown Vegas, Solomon Zachariah smiles to himself, a predator who has finally ensnared the prey he's been stalking for years. The game has begun. The stakes are set. And in Las Vegas, the house always has an edge. But sometimes, just sometimes, a gambler hits the perfect hand. Portia DeMarco stands on the rooftop helipad of the Palazzo Royale, 68 floors above the Strip, watching the sunset paint the desert mountains in shades of copper and gold. Up here, the chaos of Vegas feels distant. The slot machines, the crowds, the constant transactional nature of every human interaction. Up here, she can almost pretend she's free. Almost. Another one bit the dust, says a voice behind her. Portia turns to see her best friend and assistant, Nicole Chun, stepping onto the helipad with 2 glasses of champagne. Nicole is 30, sharp-featured, wearing a tailored pantsuit and an expression of perpetual skepticism. She's worked for the DeMarco family for 8 years, rising from casino floor manager to Portia's right hand. More importantly, she's one of the few people in Vegas who tells Portia the truth. "Who was it this time?" Portia asks, accepting a glass. "Richard Pemberton. Oil money from Texas. Chose the platinum safe. Got so angry when he read the message that he threw a chair through a Ming Dynasty vase in the corridor. Security escorted him out? I'm billing him for the vase." Portia sips her champagne, feeling nothing. For 6 months, ever since her father's death, her life has become a parade of men trying to solve Vincent DeMarco's riddle. Billionaires, athletes, celebrities, foreign dignitaries, all convinced they're clever enough, special enough, deserving enough to win her like she's a jackpot, spinning on a slot machine reel. 12 failures, Portia says quietly. 12 men who saw me as a prize, not a person. Your father was trying to protect you, Nicole offers, though her tone suggests she's not entirely convinced. My father was trying to control me from beyond the grave. There's no bitterness in Portia's voice, just exhaustion. He couldn't stand the thought that I might choose wrong, might fall for the wrong man, might make a mistake like a normal human being. Vincent DeMarco had been a genius and a tyrant, often simultaneously. He'd built the Palazzo Royale from nothing, revolutionized casino design, treated employees better than any other Vegas mogul. But with his daughter, he was suffocating. Every boyfriend scrutinized and found wanting. Every decision questioned. When he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, given 6 months to live, his final act was to design this elaborate game, ensuring that even in death he controlled whom Portia could marry. The will is ironclad, Nicole says, reading Portia's thoughts. I've had 5 different law firms review it. You can't contest it without losing your inheritance entirely. Everything goes to charity if you try to break the terms. So I'm trapped. You're protected. There's a difference. Is there? Portia gestures at the strip below, the empire she's inherited. I run a billion-dollar casino. I manage 4,000 employees. I negotiate with vendors, handle high-roller clients who bet millions in a night, deal with the Nevada Gaming Commission. But I can't choose who to love. Tell me how that's protection and not imprisonment. Nicole has no answer. They stand in silence, watching night plane the desert. Below them, the Palazzo Royale begins its evening transformation, lights blazing to life, fountains illuminated, the massive LED screens on the facade cycling through advertisements for shows and restaurants. There's someone new expressing interest, Nicole says finally. Bassanio Russo, professional poker player. He's been asking around about the challenge, trying to understand the rules. Portia's heart does something unexpected. It quickens. She's met Bassanio 3 times now at various industry functions. The last encounter was 2 weeks ago at a charity poker tournament. They sat next to each other at dinner, talking for 3 hours about everything except casinos and gambling. He told her about growing up poor in Henderson, about his mother who cleaned hotel rooms, and his father who dealt blackjack at downtown casinos. She told him about the loneliness of inherited wealth, about feeling like a curator of someone else's dream rather than the architect of her own. When the night ended, she didn't want him to leave. Bassanio doesn't have money, Portia says carefully, keeping her voice neutral. Most of these suitors are billionaires, princes, men with their own empires. He's different, Nicole finishes. Which is exactly why you like him. Portia doesn't deny it. My father would have hated him. No family money, no established position, just talent and ambition. Dad would have seen him as a fortune hunter. Maybe your father designed this whole thing hoping someone like Bassanio would show up. Think about it, Portia. The riddle isn't about wealth or status. It's about seeing past surface value, understanding that real worth isn't always obvious. You think Bassanio could choose correctly? I think if anyone can, it's someone who spent their life reading people, calculating odds, making decisions with incomplete information. That's literally what poker players do. Portia feels hope stirring, dangerous, and intoxicating. He hasn't officially entered the challenge yet. He will. Word is he's getting backing from Antonio Benedetti, the casino owner. They're best friends, grew up together. Antonio's apparently loaning him $200,000 to enter the World Series of Poker, build his credibility. Portia turns this information over in her mind. A friend willing to risk that kind of money speaks to Bassanio's character. In Vegas, where every relationship is transactional, genuine friendship is rarer than royal flushes. If he enters the challenge and fails, Portia says slowly, I'll never see him again. The contract forbids it. And if he succeeds, then my father's ghost gets exactly what it wanted. Someone smart enough to beat the game. Nicole raises her champagne glass. To games we don't choose, but have to play anyway. They drink to that. Two women standing above an empire built on gambling, both trapped in their own ways by systems created by dead men. Below, somewhere in the glittering chaos of Las Vegas, Bassanio Russo prepares to risk everything on a single choice. And Antonio Benedetti has already wagered something more precious than money. He's wagered his flesh, his blood, his very body on his friend's dreams. The wheel is spinning, the dice are tumbling through air, and nobody knows where they'll land. 3 days later, Bassanio sits in Antonio's private suite at the Venetian Star. $200,000 in certified checks spread across the mahogany coffee table, like a winning hand finally revealed. The money is real. The opportunity is tangible. Yet Bassanio finds his hands trembling slightly as he reaches for the checks. You're sure about this? Antonio asks, pouring them both whiskey from a crystal decanter. Once you enter that challenge, there's no backing out. Win or lose, the contract is binding. Bassanio picks up a check, feeling its weight. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Tony. She's what I've been searching for without knowing it. Every bad beat, every tournament bust out, every failed relationship, it all led here. Antonio settles into a leather armchair, studying his friend. Bassanio has cleaned up for the occasion, fresh haircut, new suit that actually fits properly, shoes that aren't scuffed. He looks like someone who belongs in the high-stakes rooms, not someone perpetually one bad session from being broke. Tell me about the safes, Antonio says. What do you know? Platinum, gold, and lead. They're kept in 3 separate rooms on the top floor of the Palazzo Royale. Each room is identical, same dimensions, same lighting, same everything. The safes are the only difference. You walk into each room, look at the safe, and you get exactly 5 minutes to make your choice. No research beforehand, no outside help, just you and your instincts. What's your strategy? Bassanio swirls his whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. In poker, the worst players are the ones who play what's in front of them without considering what it represents. A pair of aces looks beautiful, but if the board shows 3 hearts and your opponent is betting heavy, those aces might be worthless. It's about reading beyond the surface. So you won't choose platinum or gold. Everyone chooses platinum or gold. 12 men have failed, and I guarantee most of them picked the shiny options. Vincent DeMarco was testing for something deeper, the ability to see value where others see nothing. The lead safe is the answer. It has to be. Antonio nods slowly. You're probably right. But probably is a dangerous word when the stakes are this high. What if Vincent was double bluffing? What if he knew smart people would overthink it, would reject the obvious choices? So he put the contract in the gold safe knowing they'd all pick lead. Then I'm screwed, Bassanio admits with a slight smile. But that's the thing about gambling, Tony. At some point you have to commit. You gather information, calculate odds, trust your read, and then you act. Hesitation kills more players than bad cards. They sit in comfortable silence, 2 men who've known each other long enough that words aren't always necessary. Outside the windows, the strip performs its nightly showlights dancing, crowds flowing, money changing hands in an endless cycle of hope and mathematics. I signed the contract with Solomon yesterday, Antonio says quietly. Bassanio's head snaps up. You what? I needed the cash fast. My assets are tied up. Solomon offered terms I couldn't refuse, 0 interest if I pay back within 30 days. And if you don't? Antonio's expression darkens. A pound of flesh. Literally. It's in the contract. Legally binding. He gets to cut 1 pound from anywhere he chooses. Jesus Christ, Tony. Bassanio sets down his glass with a sharp crack. You can't be serious. That's medieval. That's insane. It's also irrelevant because I'll pay him back. My quarterly distributions come through in 3 weeks. I'll have the liquidity. But what if something goes wrong? What if there's a delay, a technical issue, an unexpected? Nothing will go wrong. Antonio interrupts, his voice firm. And even if it did, it doesn't matter. You needed this money to pursue something real, something that might actually bring you happiness. I've spent my whole life building an empire, Baz. I own 3 casinos. I'm worth hundreds of millions on paper. But I go home alone every night to an empty penthouse. I have business associates, but no real friends except you. If risking my flesh is what it takes to help my brother find love, then it's a risk worth taking. Bassanio's eyes are wet. I don't deserve you. Nobody deserves anybody. We just get lucky sometimes with who enters our lives. Antonio raises his glass. To luck, friendship, and calculated risks. They drink, sealing the moment. The weight of what they're both about to attempt settles over them like a dealer's hand covering a final card. Everything is in motion now. Antonio has 30 days to repay Solomon. Bassanio has to somehow prove himself worthy, enter Portia's challenge, and choose the correct safe. 2 men, 2 impossible gambles, both betting everything on the belief that destiny rewards the bold. When will you try the challenge? Antonio asks. Next week. I want to take Portia to dinner first, talk to her without the pressure of the game hanging over us. I need to understand her better, not to manipulate or strategize, but because I genuinely want to know who she is beyond the heiress, beyond her father's shadow. She might not be allowed to see you. The rules The rules say suitors can't receive help from her regarding the safes. They don't say we can't have dinner. I already texted her. She said yes. Antonio smiles genuinely for the first time all evening. You really do have all the luck, you bastard. Not luck. Just the audacity to ask for what I want. Bassanio gathers the checks carefully, tucking them into an inside jacket pocket. I should go. I need to prepare, get my head right for this. They embrace at the door, a long moment of brotherhood that transcends words. When Bassanio leaves, Antonio stands alone in his suite, looking out at his kingdom of neon and noise. Somewhere in the darkness, Solomon Zachariah waits with a contract and a knife. Somewhere in the light, Portia DeMarco waits with 3 safes and a heart that maybe, finally, wants to be won. The city hums its eternal song, the clink of chips, the spin of wheels, the shuffle of cards. And 2 friends have placed their bets on hope, on love, on the irrational belief that sometimes the universe deals fairly. Sometimes. The restaurant is Jewel Rubicon at the MGM Grand, 3 Michelin stars, and the kind of place where a meal costs more than most people's monthly rent. Bassanio arrives 10 minutes early, wearing his new suit, heart hammering against his ribs like it's trying to escape. He's played poker for millions of dollars without breaking a sweat, but the prospect of dinner with Portia DeMarco terrifies him in ways no tournament ever has. She arrives exactly on time, wearing a simple emerald dress that matches her eyes, her dark hair pulled back to reveal elegant cheekbones. No bodyguards, no entourage, just a woman who happens to own one of the largest casinos in the world, walking through the restaurant like she's anyone else. You're nervous, she observes as they sit, a slight smile playing at her lips. Terrified, Bassanio admits. I've been rehearsing conversation topics for 3 hours. I have note cards in my pocket. She laughs, genuine and warm. Please tell me you're joking about the note cards. He pulls them out, showing her. She reads the top one aloud. Ask about her favorite book. Follow up. What does she think about the symbolism of... She stops, laughing harder. Oh my God, you actually made study notes for our date? I'm a professional gambler who barely graduated high school. You have an MBA from Stanford. I figured I needed preparation. Bassanio, I've had dinner with princes who couldn't hold a conversation beyond their polo handicaps and CEOs who only talked about their quarterly earnings. The fact that you're nervous and prepared note cards is possibly the most charming thing anyone's ever done. The evening unfolds like a perfect hand. They talk about everything her childhood growing up in casino hotel suites, never quite having a normal home. His memories of watching his mother come home exhausted from cleaning rooms, swearing he'd make enough money that she'd never work again. She tells him about studying business because her father demanded it, even though she wanted to study art history. He tells her about his first poker tournament, winning $3,000 and feeling like a king. Why poker? She asks as their entrees arrived over sole for her, Wagyu beef for him. Because it's the only game where skill matters more than luck over time. Roulette, slots, craps, they're all pure chance. The house edge is mathematical, inevitable. But poker? You're playing against other people, reading them, understanding psychology, calculating odds. You can actually win if you're good enough. My father would have liked that answer. He always said Vegas was built on the reality that most people can't do math. But he respected anyone who could beat the games through intelligence. Is that why he created the challenge? To find someone intelligent? Portia sets down her fork, her expression growing serious. He created it because he was dying and couldn't stand losing control. The safes, the riddle, the binding contract. It's all his way of choosing my husband when he couldn't be here to do it in person. Do you resent him for it? Every day. And I also understand it. He built everything from nothing, and watching his empire pass to someone unworthy would have killed him faster than the cancer. The challenge isn't really about the safes. Who won't just grab for the shiniest object? It's about finding someone who sees value beyond surface appearances, who can make hard decisions with incomplete information. Bassanio leans forward. And what do you want, Portia? Not your father, not to challenge you. She meets his eyes, and there's vulnerability there that surprises him. I want someone who sees me as Portia, not as a Palazzo Royale. Someone who would want me if I owned nothing, if I was just a girl working tables on Fremont Street. I want real, Bassanio. In a city built entirely on illusion, I want something true. I see you, he says quietly. I've seen you since the first time we talked. The way you remember dealers' names, how you tip cocktail waitresses like they're humans, not servants, how you actually listen when people speak instead of waiting for your turn to talk. I see someone brilliant and kind and trapped in a cage made of gold. And I want to know that person, regardless of which safe I choose. Portia reaches across the table, taking his hand. Her touch is electric. When will you enter the challenge? Tomorrow. I've delayed long enough. But I need you to know if I fail, if I choose wrong and the contract forbids me from seeing you again, these hours tonight were worth it. Knowing you're real, that someone like you exists in this desert of artifice, that's enough. Don't fail, she whispers. Please, Bassanio. I've watched 12 men choose wrong, and each time I felt nothing. If you walk into those rooms tomorrow, I'll be feeling everything. Choose wisely. Choose true. They finish dinner, neither wanting the evening to end. He walks her to her car, a modest Tesla, nothing ostentatious, and they stand in the valet area of the MGM Grand, while tourists swirl around them taking photos and arguing about which casino to hit next. Lead, she says suddenly. What? I can't tell you which safe holds the contract, but I can tell you this. My father spent his life teaching me that real value is often hidden where people don't think to look. He started as a janitor at the Sands, worked his way up by noticing things others missed, a broken slot machine paying out wrong, a dealer with a tell inefficiencies in the system. He built an empire by finding diamonds in the rough. She kisses his cheek, brief and electric. Good luck, Bassanio Russo. I hope you're as good at reading situations as you think you are. Then she's gone, driving away into the neon night, leaving Bassanio standing there with his heart racing and his mind absolutely certain. Lead. It has to be lead. Not because Portia told him she was careful not to violate the contract, but because everything about Vincent DeMarco's life story points to that answer. Tomorrow he'll face the challenge. Tomorrow he'll choose. And tomorrow either he wins everything or loses even the right to try again. But tonight, standing in the warm Las Vegas air with the taste of her goodbye still on his cheek, Bassanio allows himself to believe in destiny. The 68th floor of the Palazzo Royale exists in a different reality than the casino floors below. Up here there are no slot machines, no crowds, no noise. Just 3 hallways leading to 3 identical rooms, and silence so complete that Bassanio can hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. Nicole Chun stands beside him with a leather portfolio containing the contract. Once you sign, you proceed to the first room. You'll have 5 minutes to examine each safe before making your final choice. You cannot touch the safes, cannot open them, cannot damage them in any way. You simply observe and decide. If you choose incorrectly, security will escort you from the property, and the contract becomes binding. You can never propose marriage to any woman for the remainder of your life. Do you understand? I understand, Bassanio says, though his mouth is dry as desert sand. Sign here, here, and here. Nicole points to signature lines. Her expression is neutral, professional, but Bassanio catches something in her eyes, hope, maybe, or curiosity about whether he's different from the 12 failures before him. He signs. His hand is steady despite everything. Years of high-stakes poker have taught him to control physical tells, to project calm even when his mind races like a slot machine on tilt. Follow me, Nicole says. The first hallway is lined with abstract art, recessed lighting creating pools of shadow and illumination. She opens a heavy door, gestures him inside, and closes it behind him. Bassanio is alone with the platinum safe. It dominates the small room, roughly 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide, polished to mirror perfection. The metal gleams like captured starlight, beautiful and cold. Platinum is rarer than gold, more valuable, more exclusive. It whispers of wealth beyond measure, of status and prestige. On top of the safe sits a small placard with an engraved message. Who chooseth me shall gain what many men desire. What many men desire. That's the key phrase, Bassanio thinks. Many men desire wealth, status, the obvious prize. But Vincent DeMarco wasn't looking for a man like many men. He was looking for someone different. 5 minutes feels like 5 seconds. The door opens. Nicole leads him to the second room. The gold safe gleams with warm, ancient authority. Gold built empires, started wars, drove exploration and conquest. It's the classic symbol of wealth, appearing in every culture's mythology and dreams. The placard reads, Who chooseth me shall get as much as he deserves. As much as he deserves. That's a trap, Bassanio realizes. Every man who chose this safe probably thought himself deserving of Portia, of her fortune, of the DeMarco legacy. But worthiness isn't self-declared. True value comes from others' recognition, not self-assessment. The door opens again. The third room. The lead safe is dull gray, unremarkable, the kind of metal used for pipes and bullets and weights. It sits in the same spot as the others, but it seems almost apologetic, like it knows it doesn't belong in a billion-dollar casino penthouse. The placard reads, Who chooseth me must give and hazard all he hath. Give and hazard all he hath. Bassanio stands very still, letting those words sink into him. This isn't about taking. It's about risking. It's about being willing to lose everything for the chance at something real. He thinks of Antonio, who literally hazarded his flesh to give Bassanio this opportunity. He thinks of his own choice to pursue Portia, despite having nothing to offer but himself, no fortune. No empire, just a poker player's dreams and a heart that recognized its match. Have you decided? Nicole asks from the doorway. Yes. Bassanio's voice is clear, certain. I choose lead. Nicole's professional mask cracks for just a moment, a flash of something that might be relief or triumph. She produces a key from her jacket, walks to the lead safe, and unlocks it. The door swings open with a soft click that sounds like destiny falling into place. Inside is a single piece of paper, cream-colored, expensive. Bassanio lifts it with trembling hands and reads, "You have chosen wisely. True love is not about what you can gain, but what you're willing to risk. You saw past surface value to the heart of the matter. If you love my daughter with even a fraction of the courage you showed in this choice, you'll make her happy. The contract grants you permission to ask Portia DeMarco for her hand in marriage. Whether she says yes is between you and her. I've done my part, now do yours. Vincent DeMarco." Bassanio reads it 3 times, making sure it's real, that he hasn't hallucinated from stress. Then he starts laughing, a sound of pure joy and relief that echoes in the small room. "Congratulations," Nicole says, and she's actually smiling. "You're the first to choose correctly." Portia is waiting in the rooftop garden. She's been there since you started the challenge. She has? She wanted to be nearby when you finished. Win or lose, she wanted to see you immediately. Bassanio follows Nicole to the elevator, then up 1 more floor to the rooftop garden, a lush space with real grass, imported trees, and flowers that have no business blooming in the Nevada desert. And there, standing by the edge looking out at the city, is Portia. She turns when she hears his footsteps. He holds up the paper wordlessly. Portia runs to him, actually runs, her composure shattering into something raw and human. They collide in an embrace that feels like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. "You chose lead," she whispers against his chest. "I chose risk over reward. I chose truth over appearance. I chose you over everything else." She pulls back, looking up at him with tears streaming down her face. "Ask me, Portia DeMarco, will you marry me?" "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They kiss as the sun sets over Las Vegas. 2 people who found something real in a city built entirely on illusion. Below them, 1,000,000 lights begin their nightly performance. And for once, the house doesn't win. Love does. Antonio receives the news from Bassanio via phone call at 2 in the morning. He's in his office at the Venetian Star, reviewing construction reports for the Diamond Palace renovation, when his phone lights up with his friend's name. "I did it, Tony. I chose correctly." She said yes. Antonio feels genuine happiness flood through him, warm and uncomplicated. "Congratulations, Baz. I knew you could do it. I couldn't have done it without you. That 200,000, it gave me the confidence to even try. I'm going to pay you back every cent, I swear. Focus on your future wife. We'll worry about money later." They talk for 20 minutes, Bassanio describing every detail: the safes, the message from Vincent, Portia's tears, the kiss. Antonio listens with a smile, remembering what it feels like to believe in happy endings. When the call ends, he sits alone in his office, feeling something he hasn't felt in years. Hope that maybe the universe occasionally rewards good people. That hope lasts exactly 11 days. Marcus Chun enters Antonio's office without knocking, his face the color of ash. "We have a problem." "A serious problem." Antonio looks up from his laptop. "What kind of problem?" "The Macau deal fell through. The Chinese government changed regulations overnight, new restrictions on foreign casino ownership. Our partners pulled out. The deal is dead. So we lost a $5 million deposit. That's not the worst part. The deposit was structured as a loan against our quarterly distributions. When the deal collapsed, the loan got called immediately. Zachariah. The bank took the $5 million directly from our distribution account. Antonio, that was the money you were counting on to pay back Solomon. The office suddenly feels very cold. How much do we have left? Marcus opens his laptop, pulls up spreadsheets with hands that shake slightly. After the loan repayment, operational expenses, payroll, vendor contracts, and the gaming commission fees, we have $43,000 in liquid capital. You owe Solomon $200,000. The deadline is in 19 days. Antonio stands, walking to the window, trying to think. What are our options? Emergency loan from another bank, but processing takes minimum 30 days. Selling assets, but again, we can't close fast enough. Calling in favors from other casino owners, but Tony, you've helped a lot of people over the years, and most of them are highly leveraged right now themselves. The subprime mortgage crisis is spreading. Credit is freezing up across the entire financial sector. There has to be something. There is. Go to Solomon. Explain the situation. Negotiate an extension or restructure the terms. He's a businessman. Surely he'll be reasonable. But Antonio knows Solomon won't be reasonable. This is exactly what Solomon wanted. Antonio Benedetti, proud owner of strip casinos, coming to him desperate and broken. This is revenge for years of subtle discrimination, of being excluded from the real power circles of Las Vegas. Set up a meeting, Antonio says quietly. Today, they meet at Solomon's office in the Desert Sands Casino, a space that's all dark wood and leather, decorated with photographs of old Vegas Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky, the original gangsters who built the city on blood and ambition. Solomon sits behind his desk, fingers steepled, looking like a judge about to deliver sentence. Antonio, I wondered when you'd come. You've heard about the Macau deal. This is Las Vegas. Everyone hears everything. Solomon gestures to a chair. Please sit. Let's talk like civilized men. Antonio remains standing. I need an extension. 60 more days. I'll pay double interest 40%. The contract specifies 30 days. No extensions clause. Solomon, be reasonable. The deal collapsed due to circumstances beyond my control. Chinese regulatory changes. Business is always about circumstances beyond our control. That's why we make contracts, why we establish terms. You agreed to 30 days. You have 19 days remaining. I'll offer collateral. Real collateral equity stake in the Golden Mirage. Partial ownership in exchange for time. Solomon shakes his head slowly. I don't want your casino, Antonio. I want what the contract stipulates. The words hang between them like a blade. Antonio feels ice spreading through his veins. You can't actually intend to collect. That clause was symbolic, a gesture of what? Humiliation? Revenge? Oh, it was both those things. But it was also legally binding. Solomon opens a drawer, pulls out the contract. Pages marked with yellow tabs. Paragraph 7, subsection 3. In the event of default, the lender shall have the right to extract precisely 1 pound of flesh from the debtor's body, from such part as it pleaseth the lender. Signed by you. Witnessed by attorneys. Filed with the county clerk. This is insane. It's medieval. It's justice. Solomon stands now, his voice hardening. For 20 years, men like you have treated men like me like we're barely legitimate. You smile at charity events and exclude us from real power. You build your strip empires while we're stuck with downtown properties and scraps. You take our money when it's convenient and forget us when it's not. So yes, Antonio, I'm going to collect. I'm going to cut 1 pound of flesh from your body, and I'm going to do it publicly. And everyone in this city will know that the great Antonio Benedetti bled just like everyone else. Antonio's hands curl into fists. I'll fight this in court. Please do. I have 8 attorneys who've reviewed every word of that contract. It's ironclad. You'll lose, waste more money you don't have, and still end up on my table. Where? Antonio's voice is barely a whisper. I'm sorry? Where will you cut? Solomon smiles, and it's the most terrible thing Antonio has ever seen. Your heart, I think. 1 pound of flesh taken from the left side of your chest. My doctors tell me it can be done surgically, precisely measured. You'll survive, probably, though the recovery will be painful. Antonio walks out without another word, his legs barely holding him. He makes it to his car before the shaking starts. For the first time since his father died, he feels genuinely afraid. Antonio doesn't tell Bassanio. For 3 days, he carries the weight alone, going through the motions of running his casinos while his mind circles the same impossible problem. He consults 7 different attorneys. They all say the same thing. The contract is valid, enforceable, and horrifying. On the 4th day, Bassanio shows up unannounced at Antonio's penthouse at the Venetian Star. He takes one look at his friend's face and knows something is catastrophically wrong. Talk to me, Tony. It's nothing. Business complications. Bullshit. I've known you for 25 years. You look like someone died. What happened? Antonio tries to deflect, to protect Bassanio from the truth. But the words come spilling out anyway. The Macau deal collapse. The seized distribution money. Solomon's refusal to negotiate. The pound of flesh clause that's gone from symbolic threat to literal reality. Bassanio's face drains of color. No, this is my fault. You borrowed that money for me. I borrowed it for myself to help someone I love. That was my choice. I'll pay him back. Portia and I will get the money. She has access to her inheritance now. 200,000 is nothing to her. The contract is between Solomon and me. He won't accept payment from anyone else. I already asked. Bassanio starts pacing, his poker player's mind racing through scenarios, calculating odds, looking for the angle everyone else missed. There has to be a loophole. Every contract has one. We just need to find it. 8 attorneys have reviewed it. There's nothing. Then we don't let him collect. We leave Vegas, disappear. You have resources, connections, and abandon everything my father built? The 3 casinos, 4,000 employees who depend on me? The DeMarco legacy I'm now part of through you? No, Baz, I won't run. They sit in heavy silence. Outside the windows, the strip glitters with false promises. Somewhere down there, tourists are winning small fortunes and losing large ones, completely unaware that in this penthouse a man is facing mutilation because he loved his friend too much. I'm sorry, Bassanio says, his voice breaking. God, Tony, I'm so sorry. Don't be. You found happiness. You found love. That's worth more than flesh and blood. But even as Antonio says it, his hand unconsciously goes to his chest, to the place where Solomon intends to cut 1 pound of flesh. He's researched it obsessively. The human heart weighs approximately 10 ounces. 1 pound is 16 ounces. Solomon isn't just taking flesh, he's taking life. Portia learns the truth that evening. Bassanio can't keep secrets from her. It's not in his nature. They sit in her private suite at the Palazzo Royale, and he tells her everything. She listens with growing horror. This Solomon Zachariah, he's actually going to do this? He's already scheduled the procedure. 2 weeks from today. He's rented surgical space at a private clinic, hired doctors, sent Antonio formal notice. Portia's mind, sharp, educated, trained in business and law, immediately begins working the problem. The contract was filed with the county clerk? Yes, so it's a public record. I can review it. Portia, 8 attorneys who work in casino law, who understand gaming regulations and corporate structures. How many of them have actually studied archaic contract law? How many have looked at the legal precedents for medieval bond agreements? Bassanio looks at her with sudden hope. You think there's a loophole? I think there might be. My father made me study the history of contract law as part of my MBA. He was obsessed with understanding how agreements evolved from ancient times to modern. He had this whole library of historical legal texts. She's already moving, pulling out her phone. I need to see that contract. Tonight. Within an hour, Nicole arrives with a certified copy. Portia spreads it across her dining table, reading every line with intense focus. Bassanio watches her work, seeing the intelligence that attracted him in the first place. She's not just beautiful, she's brilliant, methodical, relentless. Here, she says finally, pointing to a clause. Paragraph 7, subsection 3. The language is deliberately archaic, modeled on Elizabethan-era bond agreements. 1 pound of flesh, from such part as it pleaseth the lender. That specificity is important. How? Because it says flesh, but doesn't say anything about blood. In medieval law, there was a critical distinction between the two. Flesh was tissue, muscle, skin. Blood was considered separate, the essence of life itself. Bassanio leans over her shoulder, reading. So you're saying, I'm saying that if Solomon wants his pound of flesh, he can have it. But the contract doesn't give him one single drop of Antonio's blood. If he spills blood while taking the flesh, he's violated the terms and the entire contract becomes void. That's impossible. You can't cut into someone without causing bleeding. Exactly. Portia looks up, her eyes fierce, which means the contract is unenforceable. It grants Solomon something that cannot physically be obtained without violating the terms. It's a paradox built into the language. Will that hold up? I don't know, but I'm going to make damn sure we find out. Solomon wants his public spectacle. He wants to humiliate Antonio in front of the entire Vegas establishment. Fine. We'll give him his day in court, and I'm going to destroy him with his own contract. Bassanio kisses her, hard and grateful. I love you. Save it for after we win. Right now, we have 2 weeks to prepare the best legal argument of our lives. The courtroom is in the Regional Justice Center in downtown Las Vegas, a building that handles everything from traffic violations to murder trials. Dispute involving literal flesh. Casino owners sit next to poker players. Lawyers fill the gallery. News cameras line the back wall. Today it's packed beyond capacity. Word has spread through the Vegas establishment. Antonio Benedetti versus Solomon Zachariah. A contract Antonio sits at the defendant's table with his attorneys, wearing a dark suit that can't hide how much weight he's lost in 2 weeks. Bassanio sits directly behind him, one hand on his friend's shoulder. Solomon sits across the aisle with his legal team, looking confident and calm. The judge is Maria Gonzalez, 60 years old, former prosecutor with a reputation for running a tight courtroom and zero tolerance for theatrics. She reviews the contract with reading glasses perched on her nose, her expression growing increasingly incredulous. Mr. Zachariah, She says finally, "Are you seriously asking this court to enforce a contract that requires you to cut flesh from the defendant's body?" Solomon stands. His lead attorney, David Brenner, starts to speak, but Solomon waves him off. "Your Honor, I'm not asking the court to enforce anything unusual. This is a standard breach of contract case. Mr. Benedetti borrowed $200,000. He agreed to specific terms if he defaulted. He defaulted. The contract should be enforced. The contract specifies mutilation. The contract specifies remedies agreed upon by both parties. Mr. Benedetti is a sophisticated businessman. He signed willingly with full legal representation. The contract was properly filed and witnessed. Nevada law upholds freedom of contract. If two parties agree to terms and those terms aren't illegal, the court should enforce them." Judge Gonzalez looks at Antonio's attorneys. Response? The lead attorney, Robert Michaels, stands. "Your Honor, this contract violates public policy. It's unconscionable, barbaric, and—" "It's none of those things," Solomon interrupts. "Unconscionable means one party had no choice, was coerced, or the terms were hidden. Antonio chose to sign. Nobody forced him. The terms were explicit and clear. He wanted zero-interest financing. I provided it with these conditions. That's freedom of contract." Judge Gonzalez removes her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. "Mr. Benedetti, did you read this contract before signing?" Antonio stands. "I did, Your Honor." "Did you understand what you were agreeing to?" "I did." "Did anyone force you to sign?" "No, Your Honor. I signed willingly because I believed I could meet the payment deadline." "I was wrong." The courtroom murmurs. Judge Gonzalez raises her hand for silence. "Mr. Zachariah, if I enforce this contract, you're asking for permission to surgically remove flesh from a human being. Are you prepared to actually do that?" "I am, Your Honor. I have doctors on standby, a surgical facility reserved, and proper medical equipment. It will be done professionally with anesthesia, with minimal risk to Mr. Benedetti's life." "Minimal risk," the judge repeats flatly. "Minimal risk of killing someone over $200,000. With respect, Your Honor, this isn't about the money anymore. This is about accountability. Men like Antonio Benedetti operate with impunity in this city. They borrow, they default. They use influence to escape consequences. This contract makes him accountable. That's what justice looks like." Judge Gonzalez leans back in her chair, clearly struggling. "I'm going to hear arguments. Mr. Michaels, make your case for why this contract should be void." Robert Michaels stands, launching into arguments about public policy, about the 13th Amendment prohibiting slavery and involuntary servitude, about how enforcing this contract would set dangerous precedent. He's eloquent, passionate, but Antonio can see the judge's skepticism. Freedom of contract is sacred in Nevada. The entire casino industry depends on enforcing agreements between sophisticated parties. They're losing. Then the courtroom door opens. A woman walks in, late 20s, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Her dark hair is pulled back severely. She wears minimal makeup and serious glasses that make her look older, more austere. Only Bassanio recognizes her immediately. Portia. She approaches the bench. "Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. My name is Patricia Marconi, attorney at law. I represent Antonio Benedetti in this matter. I request permission to join his defense team." Judge Gonzalez frowns. Mr. Benedetti already has representation. With respect, Your Honor, his current counsel is arguing the wrong issue. May I approach? After a moment, the judge nods. Portia walks forward with absolute confidence, handing documents to the judge and to Solomon's team. Your Honor, I filed these papers with the clerk this morning. I'm offering a different legal theory, one that makes the public policy arguments unnecessary. Solomon's attorney, Brenner, scans the documents. His face goes pale. What is your theory, Ms. Marconi? The judge asks. Portia turns to face the courtroom, and her voice rings out clear and strong. The contract should be enforced exactly as written. Mr. Zachariah should get his pound of flesh, but he should get only what the contract explicitly grants, nothing more, nothing less. Antonio looks confused. Bassanio squeezes his shoulder to trust her. Solomon stands. Your Honor, this is exactly what I've been arguing. Enforce the contract as written. Then we're in agreement, Portia says with a slight smile. Let's read it carefully. Paragraph 7, subsection 3. The lender shall have the right to extract precisely 1 pound of flesh from the debtor's body, from such part as it pleaseth the lender. Very specific language. 1 pound of flesh. Nothing more. Correct, Solomon says slowly, sensing a trap, but not seeing it yet. The contract says flesh, Portia continues. It doesn't say blood. It doesn't say tissue. It doesn't say organs. Just flesh. 1 pound measured exactly. The courtroom is absolutely silent. Every person leans forward, sensing something shifting, some invisible balance tipping. Solomon narrows his eyes. What's your point, counselor? My point, Mr. Zachariah, is that you're entitled to exactly 1 pound of flesh. Not 1.1 pounds. Not 15.9 ounces. Exactly 16 ounces of flesh. If you take more, you've breached the contract. If you take less, you haven't fulfilled the terms. It must be precise. That can be measured, Solomon says. Surgical scales are accurate to the gram. Excellent, so you'll cut exactly 1 pound. But here's the problem. Portia pulls out a medical textbook marked with tabs. According to basic human physiology, it's impossible to cut into living flesh without severing blood vessels. The human body contains approximately 60,000 miles of blood vessels. You cannot extract tissue without cutting through them, and when you cut through them, blood flows. Judge Gonzalez sits up straighter, beginning to see it. The contract grants you 1 pound of flesh, Portia continues, her voice gaining strength. It says absolutely nothing about blood. Blood is not flesh. They're legally and medically distinct. If you spill 1 single drop of Antonio Benedetti's blood while taking your pound of flesh, you've taken something the contract doesn't grant you. That's conversion. That's theft. That's assault. Solomon's face flushes red. That's ridiculous. It's a technicality, a semantic game. It's the exact wording of your contract, Portia interrupts, her voice sharp as a blade. You drafted these terms, Mr. Zachariah. You insisted on archaic language modeled on medieval bond agreements. You made this contract ironclad, remember? No loopholes, no technicalities, no wiggle room. Well, congratulations. You created a contract that grants you something physically impossible to obtain. Brenner, Solomon's attorney, jumps up. Your Honor, this is absurd. The spirit of the contract, clearly, the spirit? Portia turns to him. No, counselor. You don't get to argue spirit when your client spent weeks bragging about how the letter of this contract was unbreakable. You filed it with the county clerk. You had 8 attorneys review every word. You rejected Antonio's offers to renegotiate because the terms were crystal clear. You can't have it both ways. Either the contract means exactly what it says, or it doesn't. Judge Gonzalez picks up the contract, reading the relevant clause again. Her expression shifts from confusion to something like awe. Ms. Marconi, are you arguing that this contract is literally unenforceable because its terms cannot be fulfilled without violating other terms? Precisely, Your Honor. It's a paradox. Mr. Zachariah can have his pound of flesh, but he cannot spill blood to get it. Since that's medically impossible, the contract fails. Under Nevada contract law, when performance becomes impossible through no fault of either party, the contract is void and both parties are released from their obligations. The courtroom erupts, reporters frantically typing, attorneys whispering urgently. Solomon stands frozen, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. Furthermore, Portia continues, raising her voice above the noise, if Mr. Zachariah attempts to take the flesh anyway, knowing he'll spill blood, he's not executing a contract. He's committing aggravated battery. Nevada Revised Statute 200.481 makes it a felony to willfully cause substantial bodily harm to another person. I have the Clark County District Attorney on standby. If this court grants Mr. Zachariah permission to cut into my client, the DA is prepared to file criminal charges immediately. Judge Gonzalez pounds her gavel. Order, everyone sit down. The room quiets, but the energy crackles like electricity before a lightning strike. Mr. Zachariah, the judge says, her voice carefully controlled. Can you extract 1 pound of flesh without drawing blood? Solomon says nothing. His jaw works, muscles twitching. Answer the question, sir. No, Solomon finally spits out. It's medically impossible. Then Ms. Marconi is correct. The contract grants you something that cannot be obtained without violating the specific terms. The contract is void due to impossibility of performance. Your Honor, please, Solomon's voice cracks. This man owes me $200,000. He defaulted. There must be consequences. There are consequences, Judge Gonzalez says. The contract is void, which means both parties are released. Mr. Benedetti doesn't owe you the flesh, but he also doesn't owe you the $200,000. The loan is canceled. The debt is erased. You both walk away from this with nothing. Nothing? Solomon's voice rises to a shout. I loaned him $200,000 in good faith. You loaned him money with a contract you deliberately designed to be a weapon. You weren't acting in good faith, Mr. Zachariah. You were setting a trap. Well, your trap had a flaw, and Ms. Marconi found it. This court will not be party to legal mutilation, regardless of how the contract is worded. She bangs the gavel. The contract is void. Mr. Benedetti, you're free to go. This case is dismissed. The courtroom explodes. Antonio sits stunned, unable to process that he's been saved. Bassanio vaults over the barrier, embracing his friend. Portia gathers her papers calmly, professionally, but Bassanio catches her eye and mouths, "Thank you." She allows herself the smallest smile. Solomon stands motionless. A man who orchestrated his own defeat through cleverness turned back on itself. He built a perfect trap and imprisoned himself inside it. As Antonio's legal team celebrates, as reporters rush forward with questions, as the courtroom descends into controlled chaos, Solomon walks to where Portia stands organizing her briefcase. You're not Patricia Marconi, he says quietly. You're Portia DeMarco, Vincent's daughter. Marconi was my mother's maiden name. I took the bar exam under that name. Everything I filed is legal and legitimate. Why? Why help him? You barely know Antonio Benedetti. Portia looks at him with something almost like pity, because Bassanio loves him, and I love Bassanio, and love means protecting the people who matter to those we care about. You wouldn't understand that, Mr. Zachariah. You understand revenge and resentment, but not love? She closes her briefcase and walks away, leaving Solomon standing alone in a courtroom that's already forgetting he exists. Outside the courthouse, the late afternoon sun beats down on Las Vegas Boulevard. Antonio stands on the steps, blinking in the harsh light like a man emerging from a cave. Television crews surround them, microphones thrust forward, questions shouted from all directions. Mr. Benedetti, how does it feel to be free? Will you pursue charges against Solomon Zachariah? Is it true Portia DeMarco represented you? Antonio's head of security creates a barrier, guiding them toward the waiting cars. But before they reach the vehicles, Antonio stops, turning back toward the courthouse entrance. Solomon emerges, flanked by his attorneys, looking diminished somehow, smaller than he did just hours ago. Their eyes meet across the crowded steps. For a long moment, neither moves. Then Antonio walks back, cutting through the crowd until he stands directly in front of Solomon. I'm sorry, Antonio says quietly, his voice carrying only to Solomon and those immediately nearby. Not for signing your contract. Not for what just happened in there, but for the years before. For every time I stayed silent when others excluded you. For every backroom deal you weren't invited to. For treating you like you were less legitimate because your casino was downtown instead of on the Strip. You were right about that, and I'm sorry. Solomon's face works through emotions, surprise, anger, confusion. Finally, he says, your apology means nothing now. Maybe not, but I'm offering it anyway. You wanted to humiliate me, to make me bleed. Instead, you taught me something. That contracts without mercy, business without humanity, revenge without wisdom, they're all hollow. They destroy the person wielding them as much as the target. Antonio extends his hand. I'm done with that old world, Solomon. The one our fathers built on blood and grudges. I hope someday you are too. Solomon stares at the offered hand, but doesn't take it. After a moment, Antonio nods, understanding, and walks away. Some wounds are too deep for a single apology to heal. But he's planted the seed. Maybe someday it will grow into something better than hatred. That evening, the five of them gather at a private room in Restaurant Guy Savoy. At Caesar's Palace, Antonio, Bassanio, Portia, Nicole, and Marcus Chun. The room overlooks the Strip, the entire city laid out below them in its neon glory. Champagne flows freely. The relief is palpable, almost intoxicating. To Portia, Antonio raises his glass. Who saved my life with 6 semesters of contract law and 1 semester of medieval legal history. They drink to that. Portia, still in her courtroom suit, has finally let her hair down, literally and figuratively. I almost missed it, she admits. I read that contract 20 times before I saw the blood clause loophole, or rather, the absence of a blood clause. Solomon was so focused on making the flesh requirement binding that he never thought about what he wasn't including. My father would have loved you, Antonio says. Carlo Benedetti respected intelligence above everything. He would have said you had the gift, seeing what others miss. Speaking of gifts, Bassanio reaches into his jacket, pulling out a small velvet box. He opens it to reveal a ring not ostentatious, not massive, just a perfect solitaire diamond in a platinum setting. I bought this 2 weeks ago before I knew whether I'd choose the right safe. I was that certain about you, Portia. About us. Portia's eyes fill with tears as Bassanio slides from his chair onto one knee, even though she's already said yes once before. Portia DeMarco, will you marry me? Not because your father's challenge said so, not because some contract granted permission, but because I love you completely, desperately, and I want to spend every day proving I was worthy of that lead safe. Yes, she says again, and the word tastes like freedom. Yes, forever yes. He slides the ring onto her finger. Nicole wipes at her eyes. Even Marcus, pragmatic Marcus, looks moved. Antonio watches his friend, his brother in all but blood, embrace the woman who saved them both, and feels something shift inside him. For years he's defined success as casino revenue and quarterly earnings. But this watching someone you love find happiness, this is the real jackpot. I have an announcement, Antonio says, standing. The Macau deal falling through was actually a blessing. I've been so focused on expansion, on building bigger, on proving I'm as good as my father, that I forgot why we're in this business. It's supposed to be about entertainment, about giving people a break from their ordinary lives. So I'm changing direction. No more international expansion. Instead, I'm investing in my employees' better health insurance, profit-sharing programs, tuition assistance. The casinos will make slightly less profit, but the people who actually run them will have better lives. Marcus looks concerned. Antonio, that's admirable, but nothing. I almost died over $200,000. I didn't have because I'd overextended chasing my father's ghost. I'm done with that. From now on, I build what I can sustain, I help who I can help, and I measure success differently. They toast to that, to new beginnings and hard-won wisdom. Outside the windows, the strip continues its eternal performance. Somewhere down there, people are winning and losing, hoping and despairing, chasing dreams that may or may not come true. But up here, in this private room high above the chaos, 6 people have found something rarer than any jackpot. They've found meaning. As the evening winds down, Portia pulls Antonio aside. Thank you for believing in Bassanio, for giving him the chance to prove himself. He proved himself long before your father's challenge. He just needed someone to see it. The way you saw the loophole in Solomon's contract. We all need someone who looks at us and sees what's actually there, not what's on the surface. Lead over gold, Portia says softly. Always, they rejoin the others, and the night stretches ahead, full of celebration and relief and the particular joy that comes from surviving something that should have destroyed you. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. Tomorrow, Antonio will rebuild his business with different priorities. Tomorrow, Bassanio and Portia will start planning a wedding. But tonight, they simply exist in the warm glow of victory, snatched from the jaws of catastrophe. In Las Vegas, the house usually wins. But sometimes, just sometimes, love, friendship, and intelligence beat the odds. 3 weeks after the trial, preparation for Bassanio and Portia's wedding consumed the Palazzo Royale. The ceremony will take place on the rooftop garden, the reception in the grand ballroom of Vegas wedding, done right. Elegant instead of Elvis-themed, meaningful instead of impulsive. But tonight, Bassanio sits alone at a blackjack table on the casino floor at midnight, nursing a whiskey, watching the dealer shuffle cards with practiced efficiency. He's not gambling, just thinking. The weight of what almost happened still sits heavy on him. Antonio almost died because of him. That fact circles his mind like a shark in dark water. Antonio slides into the seat beside him. Couldn't sleep either? Keep thinking about that contract. About you on an operating table. Some doctor cutting into your chest because I needed bankroll for a poker tournament. But that didn't happen. Portia saved me. This time. But what if she hadn't found the loophole? What if she'd been one day later, one legal theory short? Bassanio finally looks at his friend. I would have killed you, Tony. My dreams, my ambitions, my need to prove myself worthy, they would have literally killed you. Antonio orders whiskey from a passing cocktail waitress, waiting until she's gone before responding. You know what I thought about when Solomon described where he'd cut? When he said he'd take flesh from near my heart? What? I thought, at least it means something. At least my death wouldn't be random, wouldn't be a car accident or a heart attack in my sleep. It would be because I loved someone enough to risk everything. There are worse ways to die, Baz. That's insane. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only thing that makes sense in a city built on calculated odds and cold mathematics. Love is the only truly irrational bet worth making. They sit in silence, watching the casino floor's late-night crowd shift workers gambling their tips, insomniacs feeding slot machines, a bachelorette party stumbling through on their way to the nightclub. Life continuing its chaotic dance, oblivious to how close it came to tragedy. Portia gave me something, Bassanio says, pulling a small object from his pocket. It's a ring, platinum band, simple and elegant. She had it, custom-made. Said she wanted me to wear it as a reminder of what we almost lost. She made me promise I'd never take it off, never gamble it away, never treat it casually. It represents our commitment to each other, to making smarter choices, to never letting ambition override wisdom. Antonio examines the ring as Bassanio holds it up to the light. It's beautiful. She has a matching one. We're exchanging them at the ceremony, but she wanted me to have mine early. Said it was insurance against cold feet. Bassanio laughs softly, like I'd ever run from her. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Then the 200,000 was the best investment I ever made. I want to pay you back. Even though the contract is void, even though legally I don't owe you anything, I want to make it right. Antonio shakes his head. Keep your money. Invest it in your future with Portia. Have kids someday, send them to good schools. Build something that lasts. That's repayment enough. The dealer, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands, has been listening without comment. Now she says, you too are lucky. Most people who come through here, they're alone. Even when they're with someone, they're alone. But you too, you have something real. Don't take it for granted. We won't, Bassanio promises. They leave the table, walking through the casino toward the exit. As they pass the high-limit rooms, they see Solomon Zachariah through the glass partition. He's playing baccarat, betting large, his face expressionless. He's lost weight since the trial. There's something haunted about him now, like a man who looked into a mirror and didn't recognize what he saw. You think he'll ever forgive you? Bassanio asks. I don't think forgiveness is what he needs. I think he needs to forgive himself for wasting years on resentment, for letting bitterness consume him. My apology can't give him that. Only he can. They step outside into the warm Vegas night. The air smells like desert sage and chlorine from nearby hotel pools. Above, stars struggle to compete with the city's light pollution, but a few brave ones shine through. The wedding's in 4 days, Bassanio says. You're still my best man? Wouldn't miss it for anything. Though I should warn you, my speech is going to be embarrassing. I have stories from high school that Portia definitely hasn't heard. Tony, no. Too late, I've already written it. Nicole helped. Turns out your fiancé's best friend is very interested in hearing about the time you tried to impress a girl by claiming you could count cards and got us both kicked out of 3 casinos in one night. Bassanio groans, but he's smiling. They embrace on the sidewalk, 2 brothers who've been through fire and emerged with their bond stronger than steel. Thank you, Bassanio says quietly, for everything, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself, for risking your life, for being the best friend anyone could ask for. That's what family does, Antonio replies simply. We show up, we risk. We love without counting the cost. They part ways, Bassanio heading back to the Palazzo Royale and Portia, Antonio to his penthouse at the Venetian Star. But both men walk taller than they did 3 weeks ago. Both carry scars, visible and invisible, from their brush with Solomon's contract. And both know, bone deep, that they survived something that should have destroyed them. In Las Vegas, survival is its own kind of winning. The morning of the wedding arrives with cloudless blue skies, rare for Las Vegas in late summer. Portia stands in her dressing suite at the Palazzo Royale, wearing a gown that cost more than most cars' white silk with hand-sewn crystals that catch light like captured stars. Nicole fusses with the veil while a team of stylists perfect hair and makeup. But Portia's mind is elsewhere. She holds her phone, reading a news article from that morning. Solomon Zachariah sells Desert Sands Casino, leaves Las Vegas. He's gone, Portia says aloud. Nicole looks up. Who? Solomon. Sold his casino to a resort group. The article says he's relocating to Arizona, retiring from the gaming industry entirely. Nicole reads over her shoulder. Good riddance. After what he tried to do to Antonio. He was hurt, Portia interrupts softly. Angry and hurt, and he handled it wrong. But I understand that feeling. Being excluded, being treated as less than being judged by surface appearances. That's what my father's challenge was about, proving I could see past that kind of prejudice. You're too generous. Maybe. Or maybe I just know what it's like to be trapped by other people's choices. Portia sets down the phone, looking at her reflection. My father created those safes to control my future, even after death. Solomon created that contract to control Antonio through revenge. Both of them thought they were protecting something, but they were really just imprisoning people. And now you're free, Nicole says, adjusting the veil one final time. You chose Bassanio. He chose the lead safe. You both chose each other, not because a contract said so, but because it's real. Portia turns from the mirror, embracing her friend. Thank you for everything. For staying with me through the crazy father years. For helping me run the palazzo. For being honest when everyone else just told me what I wanted to hear. That's what friends do. We show up, kind of like what Antonio did for Bassanio. Exactly like that. Across the hotel, in another suite, Bassanio stands before his own mirror, while Antonio adjusts his bow tie. The tuxedo fits perfectly custom-made, paid for by Portia, though she pretended the palazzo provided it as a venue courtesy. Nervous? Antonio asks. Terrified. What if I mess up my vows? What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if you just focus on her? The vows, the walk, the ceremony, it's all just theater. What matters is the woman waiting for you on that rooftop. Bassanio nods, trying to steady his breathing. He touches the platinum ring Portia gave him weeks ago, now on a chain around his neck until the ceremony when it will move to his finger permanently. You know what's crazy? Bassanio says. 6 months ago, I was broke, living in a studio apartment, one bad session away from having to borrow rent money. Now I'm marrying a billionaire casino heiress in what's probably the most expensive wedding Vegas has seen in years. Cold feet? No, just disbelief. Like I'm going to wake up and discover this was all some elaborate dream. Antonio grips his friend's shoulders, looking him in the eye. It's real, Baz. You earned this. Not by choosing the right safe, but by being the kind of man who values truth over appearance, who sees people for who they are, who had the courage to risk everything for love. Portia didn't choose you because you won her father's game. She chose you because you're worthy. I hope I can be worthy of her, of this life, of everything. You already are. Now come on. Your bride is waiting. They walk together through the Palazzo Royale, past casino floors where guests gamble in their finest clothes, past restaurants where wedding guests gather for pre-ceremony cocktails, up private elevators to the rooftop garden. The space has been transformed, white flowers everywhere, chairs arranged in perfect rows, a string quartet playing softly, and the strip stretching out behind the altar like a glittering promise. 200 guests fill the seats casino industry elite, Portia's business associates, Bassanio's poker friends looking uncomfortable in formal wear, employees from all of Antonio's properties who received invitations personally signed by the boss. It's a mixing of worlds that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Antonio takes his place as best man. Nicole stands as maid of honor, the efficient Nevada Supreme Court justice who owed Vincent DeMarco a favor waits at the altar. The quartet shifts into Pachelbel's canon, and then Portia appears. She walks alone, no father to give her away by choice. Vincent orchestrated enough of her life. This walk, this choice belongs entirely to her. He can feel the electricity between them. She moves with grace and confidence, her eyes locked on Bassanio and everyone in attendance. When she reaches the altar, Bassanio takes her hands, and his prepared vows disappear from his mind completely. Instead, he speaks from his heart. I came to Vegas with nothing, and I almost left with less than nothing. But then I found you. You're the best hand I've ever been dealt, the best bet I've ever made, the only jackpot that actually matters. I promise to choose you every day, the way I chose that leads safe, knowing that real value isn't obvious, isn't shiny, isn't what everyone else wants. It's what's true. Portia's voice is steady despite her tears. You saw me. Not the casino, not the inheritance, not my father's daughter, just me. You risked everything when you had nothing, and that's the bravest thing I've ever witnessed. I promise to be worthy of that courage, to choose you every day, to build something real in a city of illusions. They exchange rings, platinum bands that match, symbols of commitment earned through trial. The justice pronounces them married. They kiss as the strip blazes behind them. Two people who found truth in the capital of lies. The reception fills the grand ballroom with music and laughter. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across 500 guests. The cake is 7 tiers of architectural perfection. Everything is elegant, expensive, exactly what Vegas expects from a casino heiress wedding. But the most memorable moment comes during the toasts. Antonio stands, champagne glass in hand, looking out at the crowd. His speech notes sit folded in his pocket, unused. Instead, he speaks from somewhere deeper. 6 months ago, I thought I understood success. I owned 3 casinos, employed thousands, had more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I thought that made me rich. Then my best friend asked me for help pursuing something that mattered to him, and I realized I'd been poor my whole life. Poor in the things that actually count: courage, vulnerability, the willingness to risk everything for something beyond profit margins. He looks at Bassanio and Portia, seated at the head table, holding hands. These two taught me what wealth really means. It's not about platinum or gold, those shiny things everyone chases. Real wealth is laid. It's the heavy, unglamorous choice to give and hazard all you have for something true. Bassanio did that when he chose that safe. I did that when I signed Solomon's contract. And we both learned that the only bets worth making are the ones where love is the ante. The crowd is silent, hanging on every word. To the bride and groom, Antonio raises his glass. May you always choose lead over gold. May you always see the value others miss. And may you never forget that the best things in life aren't won. They're earned through courage, protected through wisdom, and cherished through grace. The ballroom erupts in applause. Portia is crying openly now. Bassanio stands, embracing Antonio across the table, whispering thank you into his friend's ear. The evening continues: dinner, dancing, celebration. Marcus Chun approaches Antonio during a quiet moment, holding his tablet. The quarterly numbers just came in. The employee investment program you started? Treating people well is actually good business. Productivity is up 18%. Employee retention is the highest in the industry. Customer satisfaction scores are through the roof. Turns OU Antonio smiles. My father would have appreciated the irony. He'd be proud of you, Tony. You found your own way. On the dance floor, Bassanio and Portia move together to a slow song, lost in their own world. They're planning a honeymoon 2 weeks in Italy, away from casinos and contracts and the weight of inherited expectations. Just 2 people learning each other. Nicole finds Antonio at the bar. You did good today. The speech, the support, everything. I almost got myself killed being a fool. I'm just glad it worked out. You weren't a fool. You were a friend. There's a difference. She pauses. Solomon sent something. A courier delivered it an hour ago. She hands Antonio an envelope. Inside is a check for $200,000 and a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Antonio, the contract is void and you owe me nothing legally. But you were right on those courthouse steps. I became the thing I hated. Let resentment poison everything good. I'm leaving Vegas, starting over somewhere my father's shadow doesn't reach. This money is what you loaned Bassanio. Consider us even. Perhaps in another life we could have been friends instead of enemies. Solomon. Antonio stares at the check, processing this unexpected grace. Then he finds Bassanio and Portia, hands them the check. Wedding gift from an unlikely source. Use it for something good. As midnight approaches, Antonio stands alone on a balcony overlooking the Strip. The city glows eternal, its lights reflected in his eyes. He's changed in 6 months. The gray at his temples seems more pronounced, but his posture is straighter. He's lighter somehow, unburdened. Bassanio joins him, bow tie undone, jacket off, looking happier than Antonio has ever seen him. "Shouldn't you be with your wife?" Antonio asks. "She's saying goodbye to guests. I wanted to check on you." "I'm fine." "Better than fine, actually." They stand in comfortable silence, watching their city perform its nightly miracle, turning darkness into daylight, desperation into hope, ordinary people into gamblers brave enough to risk everything on the spin of a wheel. "What's next for you, Tony?" Bassanio asks. "I've been thinking about that. The casinos run themselves now with good people in place. I'm starting a foundation helping casino workers get education, supporting families dealing with gambling addiction, funding programs that give people second chances. Things my father never had time for. He'd be proud. Maybe, or maybe he'd think I went soft." Antonio smiles. "But I'm done living for his ghost. Time to build my own legacy. Lead over gold. Always." Portia appears in the doorway, radiant even at midnight. "There you are. We're about to cut the cake. Come on, both of you." They follow her back inside, back to the celebration, back to the noise and light and joy. As they walk, Antonio realizes something profound. He nearly died for $200,000 he didn't have, and it was the best thing that ever happened to him. It stripped away pretense, revealed what mattered, taught him the difference between price and value. The cake is cut. The bouquet is thrown. Nicole catches it, looking mortified. The last guests filter out into the Vegas night. Bassanio and Portia drive away in a vintage Rolls-Royce, just married, heading toward a future they chose themselves. Antonio watches them go, then turns back to his city. Somewhere out there, people are winning and losing. Somewhere, hearts are breaking and mending. Somewhere, someone is making a bet that will change their life forever. That's Vegas, eternal, merciless, occasionally miraculous. And Antonio Benedetti, casino owner, friend, survivor, stands at the center of it all, finally understanding that the biggest gamble isn't about money or property or flesh and blood. It's about choosing every single day to be human in a city designed to make you forget how. He chose, he survived, he loved, and in Las Vegas, that's the only jackpot that truly matters.